Hi guys, Dave Pinson here, Film Bible Ministries. You know, it's easier to go to church than to follow Jesus. What? What do you mean by that? Here we go again, Mister. I hate church. I don't hate church. I just met a guy over here at this church. I'm visiting some old friends, church friends, um, and the church they go to, and I met a guy over there that's he understands where we're coming from, the ministry and the things I talk about, and he agrees with me on a lot of the stuff, and it's pretty cool talking to him. And I saw him in between the services, and I was able to sit down with him for a couple minutes and just touch bases with him, and he sees it too. Um, the thing is, what I'm trying to say is really hard to follow Jesus, but it's not really hard to go to church. You know, I mean, you go to church, you just sit there and they tell you stuff, and you're like, that's really good, man. That's challenging. That's powerful. This guy's so smart. I'm learning so much. And they are. And most of them are, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them, except I don't know how much of it is following Jesus, right? Jesus said, if you love me, you obey me, right? And I just don't see, like, I think they have two missionaries, or, I don't know. But there's a lot that you don't see in church. But what you hear about is come to our program, and we have a program here, and we have this and that, and join this, and, and it's just so corporate. It's so, I don't know. And the whole idea of it, anyway. But it's easy to go to church and sit down and learn the Bible and pray, and that's and then just go to your life and then pray and then things by that's a nice way to live. But is that the same as following Jesus? Right? I think it was Oswald Chambers that said. I think it was Oswald that said. Yeah, he said. Nobody. He says many people have tried Christ and found out how hard it was and walked away, but no one has ever tried Christ and really followed him and leaned into him and trusted him and loved him and walked away. So what's he talking about? Well, when Jesus said, "If you want to follow me, you need to deny yourself." First of all, he says, I say this all the time because this is one of my life verses, guys. If you love me, you obey me. It doesn't say if you love me, you learn about me. If you love me, I need you to pray. If you love me, do this, do that, and the other. Prayer's part of it. But he says, if you love me, you obey me. Right? Right? He also says, if you will follow. So that means following. You get it? Obeying means to follow. If I'm in the military and we're marching down the road, I have to follow the person leading and I have to obey them, right? If you're going to follow the leader, you have to obey them, right? Right? In order to obey them, you have to listen to them, right? You have to listen to them. So how do you listen to Jesus to follow him? Will you hear him in church? A lot of times you will. Or a lot of times you'll just hear about him. Let's talk about this for a minute. Let's get into it. So Tozer, one of his stories that I always use because I love it so much. It's called the Church of the Prodigal Son. Here's how it goes. Here's the difference between what a lot of church is, maybe not your church, but a lot of church and following Jesus. And it's a good story. So the prodigal son, you remember the story of the prodigal son? He took his inheritance, went squandered it, fast living, whatever, spent all his money, and then he wound up tending pigs, which was to a Jew that was like disgusting. And what's the word? Anyway, they weren't allowed to touch it because it was sacrilegious and it was against their beliefs, and they weren't even allowed to touch pork. And here he was tending pigs, and they didn't even. Not only did he not get a salary, he got to sleep with the pigs and he got to eat their food. That's it. You, you know. And then he decides to go home to his father, and he goes home to his father, and his father accepts him and loves him and brings him in and kills a fat calf. And the point of the story is that God will take you no matter how bad you are, and he'll take you warts and all. Of course, he repented. The point is, he didn't stay prodigal. I mean, somebody tried to tell me that the other day. Well, he loves all the sinners. Look at the prodigal son. Yeah, he loved him right back into the kingdom, away from his sin. He didn't. He didn't. Anyway, so the point of this story is, what if the prodigal never came back? What if someone told him, or what if he knew about, like, if I go back to my father, but what if instead of going back, he just told everybody? And everybody goes, that's really good. If I go back to the father, he'll take care of me. He'll take me in. And yeah. And what if they opened a church and said, if you go back, and it's called the Church of the Prodigal Son, and says, if you go back to the father, he'll take you and, he'll clean you up. And, oh, that's really good. He's so forgiving. He's so kind. So we can learn all about him, right? At this place, we go to this church, but they never get up and go. They never get up and go. They just talk about how they could follow him someday. So what if the prodigal son never went home? He never would have received the love of the Father, really. He never would have received cleansing and all that stuff that he received, right? So that's just a good picture of what church can be to people, right? You know, you go and you learn about stuff, and you learn and you learn and you learn, but you never really receive the Lord. You just receive the. I mean, you say you do. You say prayer. You get baptized. You do all these things, and then you go out, you know, and you clean the parking lot, and you help people, and you know you volunteer to help the kids at VBS, and you blah 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 blah. You know, you might even be a youth pastor, and maybe you're trying to teach people to read the Bible and do things and bring more people into church. And I'm not saying that there's not saved people in church and they don't follow Jesus, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they follow the idea of it. You see what I'm saying? They follow the idea of it. What if I would do this? But where's the part where it says at the end of every sermon where you hear somebody say, "So what is the Lord telling you to do today? What are you going to do today? Not just what do you know and how, you know, what are you going to think about, you know, but what are you going to do with your life, right? Are you going to follow him, or are you going to think about following him? Talk about what it would be like to follow him. We could write a book. What would it be like to follow Jesus? Well, if I follow Jesus, I can do this and that. That's great. How about we just follow him? Deny yourself, follow him. Why? Because I love you, Lord. God bless you guys. Ta-ta for now.